The door to this room was bolted shut. You are in a long hall of roughly hewn stone, with a low ceiling. In it are many coffins and large sarcophagi, 5 of which you have already discovered contain the remains of the servants of the Temple of Chaos. Opening a 6th tomb, you are surprised by how well preserved its occupant is. What was once a man looks almost as much as its body must have appeared in life, but bone white and thin, with hollow, lifeless eyes. Its burial garments are tattered and filthy, and before you can gather your thoughts on what this means, it sits up suddenly, reaching with its clawed hand to clasp your exposed forearm. And you feel the life literally drain from your body. Hi, I'm BECMI Berserker and welcome back to my channel. This is the place where we discuss everything BECMI, which in my opinion was the most complete version of Dungeons & Dragons ever created. If you want to know more about BECMI, please follow the link to my playlist on the screen or in the description. This video is delving into what's become a controversial undead ability over the years, when once upon a time it was just par for the course. I am, of course, talking about energy drain. If you've ever heard old school gamers lament at how weak and unfrightening the undead are in later editions of the game, it's nearly always because of energy drain. That is how it worked in earlier editions and how it got most players soiling their pants. Seriously, if there was a whiff of a creature with energy drain nearby, you were out of there, reassessing your adventuring career. For those of you who are unfamiliar with energy drain in BECMI and pretty much all pre-3rd edition versions of Dungeons & Dragons, a hit from a creature with the energy drain ability would mean the loss of at least 1 level of experience, no saving throw. So if you were 5th level and got hit by the wight I described at the beginning of this video, you would now be 4th level. Nothing you can do about it, your experience points would drop to halfway between your new level and the one below, and you would instantly lose all abilities and hit points associated with that level. Of course, I said at least 1 level of damage. Many creatures did hit point damage plus the energy drain, or even hit point damage plus double energy drain, like the Spectre or the Vampire. Yes, double energy drain. That's instant damage of 2 lost levels per hit, no saving throw. And once a victim had no more levels to lose, they were dead instantly and would rise as one of the undead in 24 hours. Therefore, who could blame a brave adventuring party for losing their nerve once it became obvious a level drainer was close by? At those moments, it was time to assess whether to keep moving forward or go back and seek simpler quarries. At the centre of these assessments was whether your party had a cleric, or whether the cleric was powerful enough to turn or destroy the level drainer up ahead. Crucially, in old school Dungeons & Dragons, undead are bloody scary. The energy drain is a mechanic that replicates the fear one should feel when dealing with creatures that should not be walking the earth. I mean, think about it. It's the most unnatural concept. A thing that is dead, but exists in the world of the living. This sense of unease is conveyed through the immense destructive power these creatures have over the living. In Gothic literature, such as in Dracula and Frankenstein, this so-called living of the dead, or undead as Stoker put it, is perceived as a perversion of the natural world, especially in Mary Shelley's novel, with Frankenstein's creation of the monster. The horror of even the conception of undead walking among us was very real, especially with Shelley alluding to its possibility through the progression of science. Frankenstein's monster may not have been an energy drainer, but the unease created by its existence is what transcends literature into the D&D game, helped by the energy drain mechanic. You just don't want to go near one. So this unease resulted in the undead being feared, in a way that isn't apparent in later editions. Sure, whilst energy drain still made an appearance in 3rd edition, it was extremely watered down with the negative level mechanic and the potential to save versus level drain. Also, because you had 24 hours before you needed to make this saving throw, a 4th level restoration spell was never far away, castable by a 7th level cleric. And with 4th and 5th edition doing away with energy drain entirely, the undead fear factor, in my humble opinion, was gone. In BECMI, the possibility of restoring just 1 level of energy drain required the restore spell, available only to a cleric of 17th level or over. That's right, 17th level. Restore was a 7th level spell, which also caused the caster to lose a level as they bestowed it to the injured party. The recipient would instantly gain back their level, but the cleric would have to rest, meaning no adventuring, for 2 to 20 days to be healed of their level loss. Apart from anything else, this spell is a brilliant demonstration of the expected benevolence of a cleric, a giving of themselves for the greater good. And before any of you start up with, yeah, but why do I have to be good? Restore is what's called a reversible spell, which an evil cleric can use to drain levels, just like the Undead. So clearly Undead were more feared in BECMI and other old school versions of the game, which can add a bit of excitement to any scenario involving them. So what's the problem with energy drain? Why was it watered down and subsequently removed from the game? Well, here are a number of perspectives to this argument, but I'll give you my thoughts afterwards. The first is whether energy drain, for all its fear factor, was actually fun. I mean, getting cornered by a spectre when the dice are not being cooperative can be pretty soul-destroying. No pun intended. Watching your 10th level fighter lose 6 levels after being hit just 3 times would make any player distraught, especially when your character ends up being 4th level in a 10th level party. Sure, it depends on the players and whether they just see this as part of the game and think it's great, but many players get extremely invested in their characters. 'Twas always thus, and seeing your 10th level fighter reduced to 4th level can be extremely demoralising, especially when that annoying player in the group starts making fun of you. There's always one. A symptom of this problem is the effect on the willingness of dungeon masters to actually make use of monsters with energy drain. That is, with the potential of energy drain to severely reduce the average level of a party and derail campaigns, dungeon masters have avoided using certain undead altogether. Energy draining undead are still feared, they're just not encountered that much, at least not in a way that can be devastating to the group and campaign. The growth of this kind of approach impacted how players and DMs valued energy drain and caused them to question its usefulness. Another thing about energy drain was the amount of administration it needed to unpack what was gained at every level that's been lost, such as the number of hit points and abilities, and then remove those before progressing the battle. For instance, referring to the 10th level fighter I mentioned earlier, if a spectre hits it and causes a double energy drain, the fighter is now level 8. Their saving throws and hit roll adjustments are instantly changed, but how many hit points should they lose? If no record was kept of what was rolled for each level, this needs to be agreed with the player. As the fighter is hit 2 more times, they are reduced to 4th level, meaning that overall their saving throws and hit rolls have deteriorated by 4 compared to previously, and they also have a loss of 6 hit dice worth of hit points. Worse, if the 10th level fighter had followers back at their stronghold, they may now potentially lose them on their return, as the followers no longer respect a weaker fighter. Most of this retrofitting needs to happen in real time, as the character suffering energy drain is reduced in power, ultimately meaning they are becoming weaker against a foe that was suited for an adventurer numerous levels above where they now are, resulting in it becoming easier to drain even more levels. The outcome almost becomes predictable, with an audience of players watching what seems to be an inevitable end. So what's a dungeon master to do? I mean, I love my BECMI, but I sympathise also with the predicament that comes with energy drain. The crux of the matter for me is keeping the fear factor for undead. Over the last 20 years we've seen an erosion of this through subsequent rule sets, as energy drain lost its impact and then disappeared entirely. I really don't think the hit point max reduction in 5th edition comes anywhere close, especially when it can be healed by going to bed for the night. Actually, everything in 5e can be healed by going to bed for the night. So what do I think of energy drain after considering what I've just presented? Well, despite me vocalising my sympathy for the situation some players find themselves in my opinion, I'm not certain anything needs to change at all. Remember the fear factor of energy drainers I was referring to earlier? Well, the players should be pretty much going into things with their eyes open. If they ignore that fear and become foolhardy and take a chance, then there might be consequences. This is the point. The consequences are harsh because undead are bloody scary. That fear needs to be real and not exaggerated. If you go beyond yonder door, then you have to understand and accept that your character might be very different if they emerge with what's left of their life. Perhaps this potentiality could be a springboard for serious negotiation for services rendered. And in respect of the administration of retrofitting a character who's suffered energy drain, I would ask players to keep a record of their hit point rolls as they progress through the levels, as well as other level dependent benefits, such as weapon mastery, and I'd also tell them why. If nothing else, it would insert a seed of paranoia and expectation that energy-draining enemies are very much a potential encounter in this campaign, and they had better be on the lookout for strange things that can bump you off in the night. Well, that's my opinion on energy drain, and why I think it should remain a stalwart of the Dungeons & Dragons game. There have been millions of Dungeons & Dragons players since 1974, and I don't think anyone has come up with a satisfactory replacement to energy drain that results in the fear players should feel when faced with the undead. The undead are meant to be scary, and in BECMI and old school Dungeons & Dragons, they're as scary as the hell they promise to send you to. Losing a level is about as bad as things can get for a player. It's literally the worst thing that can happen. So enabling the undead to be able to do that worst thing results in a fear that respects the abilities of a most dangerous creature. You may disagree with me, and I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments. Do you use energy drain as written in the rules, or do you soften its impact somehow? What experiences have you had with its application? Have you lost players due to the mechanic? Also, do you wish it was still part of the modern game? I'd love to know all of this and more, so please share your experiences with the community. Otherwise, thank you for watching. I'm BECMI Berserker. Keep making your saving throws, and I hope to see you back here soon.